Now to talk more about the investigation of the Russian interference in the presidential election is Congressman Eric Swalwell from the East Bay. Your reaction to Comey and what is being going on in Washington right now?
Well, that was a bone-chilling announcement that he made at our first hearing into Russian interference. And we were able to really punctuate what he said with the personal, political, and financial ties of Donald Trump and his team to Russia that were converging at the same time as Russia's interference.
But before we got a clear picture of it, we had the chairman of the committee wind up on the White House grounds and exchanging information with the president. I got to tell you, this looks like the committee has become the story as big as the Russian story.
You know, the chairman really betrayed the independence and credibility that the Intelligence Committee is supposed to have. We have a serious job to look into this, and when the chairman is wearing a uniform with the White House's name on it and a uniform with our committee's name on it, that I think has crossed the line.
Okay, so what do you do in a situation where your committee has become the story? In other words, your whole credibility is on the line, and the Democrats, they're stoking the fires as well. So let's get honest about it. The committee has become as big a story as the investigation.
Well, we're following the evidence, but I thought back in December the most comprehensive way to understand what happened, whether any U.S. persons were responsible, and what we can do to make sure it never happens again. Independent commission. I wrote that legislation. Now that's also an insurance policy against a compromised House investigation.
Do you think the House investigation will go forward? Do you think Nunes is going to stay on?
I'm going forward. I know my House Democratic colleagues are going forward. And if the chairman wants to be credible on non-Russia related matters, because we do a lot of non-Russia work on that committee, he should step aside on the Russia investigation.
Let's go with Flynn. Flynn, the former national security advisor, questions about his dealings with Russia and other Soviet-related business interests. He wants immunity. Why not give it to him?
Generally, innocent people don't seek immunity. Now, I'm open to hearing why he wants immunity, because you usually want to be immune from something. But when I was a prosecutor, we'd only give immunity if we could only get testimony from that individual. So if he has something that we
are you trying to prosecute this, or are you trying to just get information for the American public so that we can find out what's going on? There's a difference.
Yeah. No, but he wants immunity from prosecution. And so he wants anything he says in that hearing to not be used, against him in prosecution. And so that would mean he may have something else to tell us. But right now, he's not very trustworthy. He lied to the vice president. He didn't disclose all of his dealings with Turkey. He didn't disclose money he was paid by Russia's intelligence broadcasting company. So, he's not a very trustworthy person right now.
So right now, you wouldn't give him immunity either. How do you crack this open then?
I think it's cracked open. I think the American people now see that people on Donald Trump's team were going to Moscow after the interference campaign happened. Roger Stone was telling the world before John Podesta's emails were hacked that was coming. Jared Kushner had met with a sanctioned Russian bank as the transition was taking place. It's pretty cracked open.
Wait. Are we talking about hacking the Democratic emails, or are we talking about business ties? What are you guys looking at?
We're looking at whether they converged. It's not illegal to have business ties to Russia, but when you look at the number of business ties and then the number of people who are going over to Russia or talking to Russians or talking to the Russian ambassador as this interference campaign is taking place, I don't think that's a bunch of coincidences. I think you're seeing a convergence, but the president deserves a fair hearing, and that should happen with, I think, an independent commission.
Okay, what is the mood in Washington this past week, healthcare and with this?
Well, I'll tell you that Democrats right now are united, and we've heard from our constituents. They didn't want the Affordable Care Act to be repealed. We stood united and stopped that from happening. They also want us to dig deeper into these Trump-Russia ties. We continue to do that. The president right now, the great businessman, the great negotiator, failed to negotiate a health care plan with his own team, and we see him attacking and going after Republicans. So we're going to unite and not get pulled into their mess.
Okay, but how about unite and get like an infrastructure plan passed, or maybe some tax changes? I mean, do you see any move going forward in a constructive manner, or is this just man the battles in French warfare?
No, I hope so. I'm working with Jeff Denham, a Republican over in Tracy, to connect BART up the Altamont. So we hope that would be a part of an infrastructure plan, because people, whatever is going on in Washington, they still want to spend more time with their family and less time on the road. That's something Republicans and Democrats should be able to work on.
All right, so what do you see going on this week? Real quick question. What do you predict happens this week with the Intelligence Committee?
I hope we get back on track. That's our job. The American people are counting on us, but we also need to really show that we need to take this outside of Congress with an independent commission.
All right, I want to thank you for joining us, Congressman Swalwell. It is now let's going to take a look at